"Order in the court," the bailiff shouted, but the courtroom was already buzzing with laughter. Everyone's eyes were locked on the homeless man standing before the judge, his clothes dirty and worn, his shoes falling apart, his hair matted under a dusty hoodie. Even the judge couldn't help it. A chuckle escaped his lips, and then a full laugh followed. He leaned back in his high seat, shaking his head with amusement. You're trying to represent yourself?" Judge Bradford asked with a mocking grin. "This is a real court, son, not some cartoon." The man didn't smile. He stood quietly, holding a small stack of crumpled papers. He didn't blink. "Yes, Your Honor, and I believe I have grounds to dismiss this entire case." Laughter echoed again. The jury exchanged smirks. Some of the staff even whispered among themselves, cracking jokes. But just then, the homeless man stepped forward. In a calm, steady voice, he began to speak, and within minutes, the room fell silent. Eyes widened. Mouths slowly closed. The judge, once laughing, now leaned forward in his chair. His jaw tightened, because what the homeless man was saying wasn't nonsense at all. It was brilliant. He cited legal codes like a scholar, dissected the case like a surgeon, and questioned the very heart of the system before him. The judge's face turned pale. How do you know all this?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. The man smiled for the first time, and that's when the staff member at the back of the courtroom finally stood up. "Wait," she said, eyes locked on him. "I know who he is." The courtroom gasped. And then, we go back. A week earlier. Downtown Chicago. Gray skies. The streets were busy but cold, both in temperature and in spirit. People rushed past a man sitting against the wall of a boarded-up store. No one saw him. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't want to. His name was Terrence Hill. He had a cardboard sign that read, "Veteran. Hungry. Anything helps." Most ignored him. A few threw him looks of pity. One woman stopped to give him a sandwich. Another dropped a few coins. Terrence thanked them all, even if his stomach stayed empty. Even if his hope was even emptier. But he wasn't just another homeless man. Not really. Every night, when the city slept and he found a corner where he could rest without being kicked out, Terrence pulled out his small pile of papers, old, torn-up legal documents he'd been collecting for years. He read them by streetlight, word by word, case by case, law by law. He used to be someone else. He used to have something. He just hadn't told anyone yet. That night, he was almost asleep when the flashing blue lights woke him up. A police cruiser pulled up, and 2 officers stepped out. "On your feet," one of them said. "Can't sleep here." Terrence groaned and stood up slowly. "Just resting, officers. We've had complaints." "You got ID." He didn't. They searched him. Found nothing. But when they checked his bag, they found a folded-up wallet. Inside it, a library card. And next to it, an old letter from a courthouse with his name on it. That was enough. They called it trespassing. Said he was loitering. Said he resisted arrest. He didn't. But still, they took him in. He spent 2 nights in a holding cell. Then a court date was set. When the day came, he was given an offer. Take a plea deal, plead guilty, and serve 2 weeks in county jail. But something inside him stirred. "No," he said. "I'll represent myself." The room laughed. The clerk looked at him like he'd grown another head. But Terrence was serious. Dead serious. They scheduled his hearing. Word spread. The judge that got assigned was known for being tough, and worse, for being proud. Judge Bradford had a reputation for embarrassing people who challenged him. And in his eyes, Terrence was just another nobody looking to waste his time. But Terrence came prepared. The night before court, he stayed awake reading every case he could remember. He rehearsed what he'd say. He marked each point. He timed himself. He wasn't nervous. He was ready. Morning came. The courtroom filled with the usual crowd. Officers, lawyers, tired clerks, and a few nosy visitors. But when Terrence walked in alone, wearing the same old clothes, the laughter started even before the judge entered. It was like the whole place agreed. This was going to be funny. But no one expected what happened next. And just when the laughter hit its loudest, when Judge Bradford couldn't hold back his own chuckles, Terrence started to speak. What followed wasn't just a defense. It was a dismantling. He used the Constitution like a sword. He brought up past rulings that mirrored his case. He showed how the officers had no lawful reason to detain him. He pointed out flaws in the reports, inconsistencies in the timeline, and rights that had been violated. People stopped laughing. The courtroom grew tense. The judge's face changed. And when Terrence rested his case, there was silence. A silence so thick, you could hear a pin drop. That's when the court staff member at the back, who had been staring at him for some time, finally stood up and said she recognized him. But how did she know? Why was she trembling? And why was Judge Bradford now looking at Terrence like he'd seen a ghost? Before anyone could speak again, the doors burst open. Two men in suits walked in, holding something in their hands. The room turned to them, and that's where the real storm began. The two men in suits stepped forward, their shoes clicking sharply against the marble floor. One of them held a thick black binder, the other, a single manila envelope. The judge straightened in his chair. "Excuse me, this is a closed session. Who are you?" The man with the envelope spoke first. "Federal oversight. We have jurisdiction." The courtroom was dead silent now. Even the bailiff didn't move. Terrence didn't say a word. His eyes never left the binder in the man's hand. The other man stepped up to the judge's bench, placed the binder gently in front of him, and said only 3 words. "Page 62, sir." Judge Bradford looked at the man, then at the binder, then at Terrence. He opened the binder, and what he read made his mouth drop open. "Is this a joke?" he asked. But no one laughed this time. "Do you remember what you ruled in King versus City of Chicago, sir?" the second man asked, his voice calm but stern. The judge blinked. His face turned pale. That was years ago. The city settled. The records were sealed. And yet, the man said, "This man here," he pointed to Terrence, "quoted your own decision to expose the injustice in this case." Word for word. A few gasps echoed in the room. The woman who had recognized Terrence earlier now stepped forward, walking slowly from the back. Her eyes were wide, full of something that looked like disbelief and awe mixed together. "I knew it," she whispered. "It is him." The judge finally looked up from the binder. "Who are you?" he asked again, this time to Terrence directly. Terrence just stared at him. "I'm the man you helped ruin, Your Honor. And now, let's go back again, just a little further. 6 years ago, Terrence Hill was not homeless then. He wore sharp suits and walked confidently into courthouses, not as a criminal, but as a legal mind. He wasn't a licensed attorney, but he had worked as a clerk for one of the best legal firms in the city. He was brilliant, quiet, and respected by many, until he made a mistake. He found a case involving police brutality that no one wanted to touch. A young black woman named Naomi Simmons had been beaten during a wrongful search in her own home. She had no money, no power, and no one who believed her. Except Terrence. He brought her case to his firm. They refused to take it. Said it wasn't winnable. Said it was political suicide. Terrence took it anyway. Represented her on his own. Dug up video footage, subpoenaed phone records, cross-examined officers. His case was airtight. But he was too good, too bold, and too black. Suddenly, everything changed. The court began turning against him. Documents vanished. Witnesses disappeared. His former colleagues shunned him. And then came Judge Bradford. The same judge now staring at him across the courtroom. Back then, Bradford dismissed key evidence without reason. Declared Terrence in contempt of court. Fined him. Banned him from representing clients. Ruined his name. Naomi's case was thrown out. Terrence lost his job. His home. Everything. He tried to fight back, but no one listened. Until now. Now, he was standing in the same courtroom, facing the same judge, not as a broken man, but as one who had returned with fire in his voice and law in his hands. And the court staff member who had recognized him? That was Naomi Simmons. She had rebuilt her life, found work in the courthouse, and when she saw Terrence that day, she knew. The federal agents didn't say where they had come from or why they were there. But they didn't need to. Everyone in the courtroom could feel that something big was about to break wide open. The judge was rattled. He turned to Terrence. "You're saying this case, the one you're on trial for, is a setup?" "I'm saying," Terrence said, "it's the same system, doing the same thing it always does. Just more careful now. More polite. But just as wrong." The judge didn't answer. Terrence turned to Naomi. Their eyes met. She nodded. And just then, the lights went out. Total darkness. Gasps filled the courtroom. Someone screamed. The emergency lights flickered to life. The bailiff reached for his gun. One of the federal men grabbed his radio. "We've got a blackout. Possible interference. Lock down the building." Terrence stood still. "No," he said. "This isn't interference." He looked at the judge. "This is panic. Because somewhere in that darkness, someone didn't want the truth to come out. and they were willing to shut everything down to stop it. Red emergency lights flickered on like a heartbeat. Dim, slow flashes bounced off the courtroom walls, casting eerie shadows over the people inside. Whispers turned into panic. "What's going on?" someone cried. "Stay in your seats," the bailiff barked. "Everyone remain where you are." But the fear had already slithered into the room. A woman near the front clutched her purse tightly. A young man ducked under the benches. The judge looked stunned, frozen behind his high desk, as if he were suddenly small. Terrence, still standing in the center of the courtroom, remained calm. His voice cut through the chaos. "This wasn't random," he said. "This blackout, this timing, someone is watching this court, and they don't want what I know to get out." The man from the federal agency pulled a flashlight from his coat pocket and swept the beam across the room. "Everyone stay put. No one leaves this room until backup arrives." But the damage was already done. The judge gripped the edge of his bench. "Can someone explain what this man is talking about?" The other federal agent turned to him, speaking low but firm. "Your Honor, we've been investigating this building for months. There's corruption inside this courthouse. Files gone missing. Cases vanishing. Untraceable edits to the court logs." "What does that have to do with this case?" the judge demanded. The agent pointed directly at Terrence. "Because this man is the one case that wasn't supposed to come back. And yet, here he is." The room went quiet again. But not for long. A loud thud echoed from the floor above. Then another. Naomi's voice rang out. "They're coming downstairs. Somebody locked the elevators. They're forcing their way down." "Who?" Terrence asked. But she didn't answer. She didn't know. And that was the scariest part. The doors to the courtroom groaned as someone tugged at them from the outside. Hard. Over and over. The bailiff ran toward them. "We're in session. Back away from this door." Bang. The doors rattled again, nearly coming off the hinges. I said, bang. The lights flickered even lower. Now the only thing visible was the pulsing red emergency glow, like a warning. The federal agent raised his voice. "Everyone stay down. Officers are on the way." But it was already too late. The courtroom doors burst open. Two masked figures in black rushed inside, one holding what looked like a flash drive, the other with a backpack slung over their shoulder. They didn't speak. They moved like they had a mission. The bailiff drew his weapon, but the agent shouted, "Don't shoot. They're not here to hurt anyone." The first figure threw the flash drive to the floor in front of the judge. "Play it," they said. And then, just as quickly, both figures ran out, vanishing before anyone could stop them. The whole room stood frozen. The judge slowly leaned forward and picked up the flash drive. His hands trembled. "What's on it?" he whispered. Terrence stepped forward. "Truth." And that's when Naomi screamed. Everyone turned. She stood in the witness box, looking down at something in her hand. The courtroom seal, the official stamp used for all verdicts, had been tossed at her feet. But it wasn't just a stamp. It was smeared with fresh blood. She held it up, trembling. "This was in my desk drawer," she whispered. "Just now. Someone put it there during the blackout." The judge turned pale. The agents pulled out their phones. And Terrence looked up slowly. "They're trying to send a message." The judge turned to him. "Who? Who's behind this?" Terrence didn't blink. "You tell me, Your Honor. You've been protecting them for years." Suddenly, the emergency lights flared brighter, then went completely out. Total black. But just before they died, someone caught a glimpse of the courtroom screen flickering to life. The flash drive was loading. And on it, a name appeared. A name everyone in the room knew. A name no one expected. Then, the screen cut to black. No one moved. No one breathed. And the silence felt like it could break bones. The screen stayed black. No sound. No words. Just stillness. Then, a quiet click. The courtroom projector whirred to life again, stuttering like an old film reel. Fuzzy lines appeared. Static. Then, slowly, a blurry video started to play. The angle was strange, low, like it had been hidden. The video was grainy, the audio rough. But the voices? Clear enough to recognize. "Don't worry about Hill. He's finished," one man said. Another laughed. "He'll never work in law again. Let him scream. No one's listening." The camera zoomed slightly as papers were passed across a large oak table. The room looked official, leather chairs, a city seal on the wall. Then, the camera caught a face. The judges. Judge Bradford. You could hear the collective gasp rise in the courtroom. Even the bailiff lowered his weapon. The video kept rolling. "Delete the footage," the judge said on the screen. Seal the records. If that girl brings it up again, we'll say it never existed. The man next to him nodded. And Hill? Bradford smirked. He'll take the fall. He'll be lucky to survive in the street. The screen cut off. For a few seconds, the courtroom was completely silent. Then came the murmurs. First whispers, then louder. The judge, the same one who sat pale and shaking in his seat now, stood slowly. That video is doctored. That's not real. It's fake. The federal agent turned to him. It's not. We have the original timestamp, pulled from court archive servers. This meeting took place in your chambers. 6 years ago. Terrence didn't flinch. Naomi stepped forward. Her eyes burned. You lied to me. You let them ruin me. You watched it happen and said nothing. The judge's voice cracked. I didn't have a choice. You did, she said. You just chose power. The bailiff didn't hesitate. He walked around the bench, took out a pair of handcuffs, and placed a firm hand on the judge's shoulder. By order of federal oversight, I'm detaining you until further review. Wait. You can't, the judge yelped. This is my courtroom. Not anymore, the agent said. And just like that, the man who laughed at Terrence was taken away in cuffs. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because as Judge Bradford was let out, someone shouted from the back of the room. What about the others? The question sliced the air. The courtroom paused. Terrence turned slowly to look at the voice. It came from a younger black man seated in the gallery, dressed in a delivery uniform. He stood up. My brother's in prison right now. Same courthouse. Said the cops planted evidence, but nobody listened. Another woman stood. My son too. Then another. My cousin. Got 30 years for something he didn't do. Within seconds, a dozen people were on their feet. The courtroom was no longer just about Terrence. It had become something bigger, louder. The federal agents exchanged looks. One of them stepped forward. If you have cases, names, bring them to us. We'll reopen everything tied to Judge Bradford's docket. The crowd broke into chatter, some people crying, others holding on to each other. But Terrence didn't smile. He turned to Naomi. This isn't justice yet, he said. Naomi nodded. Then we keep going. Outside the courthouse, a storm was rolling in. Thunder cracked in the sky. But inside, something had already broken wide open. The agents told everyone to evacuate while they secured the court's servers. Naomi offered to help. They trusted her now. Terrence walked out slowly. But just as he reached the exit, a woman blocked his path. She was in a business suit, holding a brown folder. Her badge peeked out just enough to show she worked for the city's legal department. You've made quite a mess, she said. I've uncovered the truth, he replied. She tilted her head. There's still a lot more underneath, you know. I know. Then she leaned in close, voice just above a whisper. You sure you're ready for what happens next, Mr. Hill? He stared at her. I've been ready for 6 years. She handed him the folder and walked away. Inside, Naomi opened the file. It was filled with sealed court transcripts. Dozens of them. Each one stamped. Dismissed without cause. Each one tied to a different judge. A different name. But one stood out. At the very bottom. Case number 4429. Naomi Simmons versus City of Chicago. She dropped the folder. Terrence picked it up. The file was complete. Unedited. Unsealed. The case they said never existed was back. And just as Terrence reached for the documents, a gunshot rang out. Everyone screamed. People ducked. The echo thundered through the courthouse. And Terrence fell to the floor. Screams erupted in every direction. He's been shot, someone cried. Naomi dropped to her knees beside Terrence. Her hands shook as she pressed against his shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. No, no, no. Stay with me, she shouted. Terrence's eyes fluttered. He gritted his teeth, blood seeping through his jacket, staining the floor beneath him. The folder with the sealed documents had flown from his hand, papers scattered across the marble. The federal agents snapped into motion. Shots fired inside the courthouse. We need emergency services now. One of them barked into his radio. The other agent dashed toward the sound's origin, eyes sharp, hand on his weapon. The doors to the hallway were still swinging. The shooter had already slipped away into the chaos. Outside, sirens wailed, echoing closer with every heartbeat. Naomi pressed harder on the wound. Don't you dare leave me now, Terrence. You hear me? You've come too far. Terrence coughed, his voice hoarse but steady. Still got work to do. Then breathe, she demanded, tears now streaking her face. Breathe and fight. You're not allowed to quit. Paramedics burst through the doors with a stretcher. Gunshot wound, left shoulder, Naomi said, moving aside. He's losing blood. One medic nodded and got to work immediately. They cut away the fabric, revealing the wound. A clean entry, no exit. He's lucky, the medic muttered. Bullet missed the artery. He'll make it, if we get him to the hospital now. Naomi exhaled sharply, but her hands were still shaking. As they lifted Terrence onto the stretcher, he grabbed her hand. His eyes locked onto hers. Don't let them bury it again, he said, his voice faint. Promise me. I promise, Naomi whispered. They rushed him out. And inside that chaotic courthouse, Naomi turned. The scattered documents still lay on the floor. But one caught her eye, the final page of her old case file. Stamped on it, clear as day. Suppressed by order of Judge Calvin R. Bradford. For internal review only. She picked it up and clenched it in her fist. The courtroom was emptying now, officers ushering people out, the tension still heavy in the air. But Naomi didn't leave. Not yet. She walked back toward the bench, toward the seat where Judge Bradford had ruled from for years. And she climbed up, stood tall behind it, looked out over the room, and realized for the first time, she wasn't scared anymore. Downstairs, in a quiet corner of the building, the federal agents searched the security feeds. Nothing on the camera from hallway B, one of them said. But look at this. He zoomed in on footage from a fire exit stairwell. A dark figure in a hoodie slipped through a service door. No face, no badge, just gone. Inside job, the agent muttered. Has to be. And then, his partner gasped. What? He pointed at the screen. It had frozen, on one frame. The shooter's hand, covered in a black glove. But right on the wrist? A gold bracelet, engraved with the initials, G.M. The agent's eyes narrowed. I know who that is. Who? But the agent didn't answer. Not yet. He stood up, reached for his phone, and said only one thing before he walked out. It's time we paid the mayor a visit. Back at the hospital, Terrence drifted in and out of consciousness. Machines beeped quietly around him. In his sleep, he saw faces. Naomi, Judge Bradford, a woman in a red suit. Then, another face. His mother. He reached for her. Don't stop now, she said. And just as her hand touched his, he woke up, gasping. Alive. Naomi was at his side. You made it, she said softly. Terrence smiled weakly. I always do. But before she could reply, the hospital door opened. The agent who had seen the bracelet stepped in, holding a file in his hand. We have a name, he said. Who is it? Naomi asked. He opened the file, flipped to a photo, held it out. And when Naomi saw the face, she stepped back in shock. No, she whispered. Terrence turned his head to look, and his smile faded, because the face staring back at him was someone he never expected, someone who had once stood beside him, a friend, the person who had helped him file Naomi's original case, the one he thought had disappeared years ago, Gregory Martin. And the initials on the bracelet? GM. Terrence leaned back on the pillow. His eyes darkened. Then it's worse than we thought. Because if Gregory had turned, then the conspiracy ran deeper than anyone imagined. And the war had only just begun. Rain lashed the hospital windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, the sterile white walls felt like they were closing in. Naomi stared at the photo of Gregory Martin like it was a ghost. I don't understand, she whispered. Gregory was one of the good guys. He helped us. He believed in the case. He was there. Terrence, still weak but fully conscious now, didn't take his eyes off the photo. He was the one who told me to take the case to court myself when the firm rejected it, he said. He said if I didn't, no one would. The agent nodded grimly. We've had eyes on Gregory for a while. We thought he just walked away. But now we know he didn't disappear. He went deeper. Naomi's mind reeled. Why would he turn? She asked. He fought so hard to bring justice. I watched him work day and night for people who couldn't afford lawyers. The agent set the file on the bedside table. Power. Leverage. Fear. Sometimes, people don't turn all at once. They rot slowly. And when they do, they learn to hide it well. Terrence looked at Naomi. We need to know what he's doing now. Where he went. Who he's working with. The agent opened the file again. He's not working with anyone. Terrence frowned. What do you mean? He's the head of a private intelligence firm now, funded by city contracts, quietly absorbed into public work during the last administration. But off the books. No official record. You know what they call themselves? Terrence shook his head. Shadow line. Naomi's stomach turned. I've heard of them, whispers. People said they handled sensitive cases, stuff the city didn't want getting out. Exactly, the agent said. And Gregory's name is all over the internal transfers. City funds redirected. Surveillance equipment purchased. Court cases reviewed. He paused. And your names? He said, looking at Terrence and Naomi. Were flagged as high-risk targets 5 months ago. Terrence sat up straighter, pain or not. They knew I was coming back before I even stepped into that courtroom. They never thought you'd get that far, the agent said. But now that you have, Shadowline's been activated. That shooting? That wasn't just a warning. It was protocol. Naomi clenched her fists. They tried to kill UT, and they'll try again. Terrence exhaled slowly. Then we beat them before they can. The agent nodded. We've got a list of names. Judges, lawyers, officers, all connected to Shadowline's operations. We'll bring it to a federal review board, but we need something solid to start with. Naomi's eyes lit up. The drive. The one the masked figures dropped in the courtroom. That had to come from somewhere. The agent opened his bag. He pulled out a second flash drive. This one was intercepted at the court server, hidden deep in a backdoor directory. Whoever uploaded the first one was planning more. You'll want to see what's on it. He plugged the drive into the laptop on the table. The screen blinked, then opened a folder titled Chainlink. Inside, video files. Dozens of them. All security footage. All from courtrooms. Naomi clicked one at random. The video opened to a clip from 2 years ago. A young black man, barely 20, was on trial. He looked terrified. Alone. The judge? Bradford. The prosecutor? Gregory Martin. Terrence's jaw tightened. They fed the cases to him, he said. Made sure the ones they wanted buried ended up with him as prosecutor. Then he buried them. Quietly. Permanently. Naomi scrolled faster now. Clip after clip. Different faces. Same courtroom. Same coldness in Gregory's eyes. And then, she found something that made her blood freeze. One video labeled Simmons_recon.mp4. She opened it. The screen showed the interior of her old apartment. Her apartment. From 6 years ago. Hidden camera footage. Time-stamped the night before the raid. Oh my God, she whispered. The footage showed 2 officers entering without a warrant. They rifled through drawers. One of them placed a small bag under her couch. Terrence couldn't speak. Naomi covered her mouth. The case she was arrested for, what had cost her her job, her reputation, her life, was fabricated. Everything. All of it. Gregory ordered this, the agent said, his voice low. He was overseeing asset clearance operations that month. Your name was on a watch list. Naomi turned to Terrence. We have him. On video. On everything. Terrence nodded. But it's not over, he said. He won't just sit still while we come for him. The agent agreed. You'll need protection. Both of you. We'll relocate you while we build the case. Terrence shook his head. No. We stay. We bring this to the people. We make it public. That's risky, the agent warned. Everything we've done has been risky, Naomi said, her voice iron. But hiding gave them power. We're not hiding anymore. The agent hesitated. Then he nodded. All right. But if you're going to expose them, do it fast. Because I promise you, Shadowline is watching. And they don't miss twice. Just then, a nurse entered the room, clipboard in hand. Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Hill, you have a visitor. Everyone turned. Who? Naomi asked. The nurse looked puzzled. She wouldn't give a name. Just said you'd recognize her. Terrence frowned. Let her in. The door opened slowly. And in walked an older black woman with gray streaks in her braids. Her eyes were calm, but powerful, like someone who had seen too much and forgotten nothing. Terrence's breath caught. Ms. Wilkins? She nodded. It's been a long time, baby. Naomi looked between them. Who is she? Terrence blinked slowly. She was my law professor, he said. The one who taught me everything. Wilkins stepped forward. And now, I'm here to help you finish what they tried to erase. She set a thick folder on the table. The title read, Shadowline Internal Audit, Phase 1. Naomi's jaw dropped. Where did you get this? Wilkins smiled. They trained Gregory. But they forgot who trained me. And outside that hospital, down the street, in a parked black SUV, Gregory Martin watched through binoculars. Expressionless. Silent. He lowered them slowly. Then pressed a button on his phone. Target is awake, he said. And he's not alone. The voice on the other end replied. Proceed. Gregory slid his phone into his coat pocket. and stepped out into the rain. The rain soaked Gregory Martin's shoulders as he stepped away from the black SUV. His footsteps were slow, precise. He wore no umbrella, no coat. The water didn't bother him. It never did. He stood across the street from the hospital entrance, staring up at the glowing windows. Somewhere in that building, Terence Hill was alive, awake, and surrounded. That changed everything. Gregory pulled out his phone again and tapped a screen. A quiet digital tone confirmed the call. Phase 2, he said. Initiate cleanup. Priority, Wilkins. The voice on the other end replied instantly. Confirmed. Gregory ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he walked into the shadows, vanishing into the night. Inside the hospital room, Wilkins sat beside Terence's bed, flipping through the Shadowline audit files like they were a favorite novel. Naomi stood behind her, tense. These files, they list everything. Payments to judges, rerouted cases, sealed records, even names of paid-off witnesses. Wilkins nodded, her eyes calm but sharp. This was only the first wave. Gregory ran the middle, but someone else was above him. Terence raised an eyebrow. You mean higher than the city? Wilkins closed the folder slowly. I mean federal. A branch that's not supposed to exist. The agent still standing in the room tensed. You're talking about S Division. Wilkins nodded again. Terence looked confused. S Division? The agent stepped forward. It's a covert wing inside the Justice Department. Unofficial. Off the books. Created to protect national integrity. But in the wrong hands. It's used to bury cases like yours before they reach sunlight. Naomi narrowed her eyes. And you're telling us Gregory's working for them? The agent shook his head. No. Gregory is them. At least, the Chicago branch. Terence leaned back, the weight of the truth sinking in. That means, all these years, every time I tried to speak up, someone was assigned to shut me down. Wilkins sighed. And they used someone you trusted. Someone who knew your every move. Naomi paced the floor. So what do we do now? We have files. We have proof. But we're sitting in a hospital room, and Gregory is still out there, and armed. The agent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then froze. What is it? Terence asked. The agent's face darkened. One of our backup teams, assigned to Professor Wilkins' safe house, just went dark. Naomi's heart dropped. Wait. You think? Wilkins stood calmly, smoothing her shirt. They're here for me. They want the rest of what I know. Terence tried to rise, wincing. Then we move. Now. Too late, said the agent, drawing his weapon and stepping toward the window. A moment later. Boom. The building shook. Naomi screamed as the room flashed red and white. Sirens began wailing through the hospital. Evacuate. Evacuate. A voice blared through the intercom. A second explosion rumbled somewhere below. Smoke filled the hallway outside. Basement access, Wilkins said, already grabbing the files and stuffing them into her bag. There's an exit 3 floors down. Emergency tunnel built for medical waste trucks. I helped design it after a bombing incident in '93. The agent nodded, already at the door. Let's move. Stick close. Terence limped up, clutching his bandaged shoulder. Naomi wrapped her arm around him, helping him steady. We're not losing you again, she said fiercely. They stepped into the hallway, smoke swirling around them like fog. Lights flickered, alarms blaring. Nurses shouted down stairwells. As they moved, a figure appeared at the far end of the hallway. Tall, dark coat, no face visible. Then, bang, a bullet shattered the glass just inches from Terence's head. Go, the agent shouted, firing back as they ducked into a side hall. Left, Wilkins shouted. Stairs are 2 doors down. Naomi threw the door open, and they rushed down a narrow stairwell, each step echoing through the concrete. Gregory's not playing anymore, Terence said through clenched teeth. This isn't intimidation. It's extermination. We get to that tunnel, Wilkins panted, and I'll show you something that will end this. Naomi glanced back. What do you mean? Wilkins looked at her. Gregory doesn't just bury cases. He erases people. But there's one he failed to erase completely. Terence's eyes narrowed. Who? Wilkins opened a small pocket in her bag. Inside was a flash drive marked only with a silver X. A witness, she said. One Gregory thought he killed. One who saw him order the Simmons raid. And he's alive. The stairs ended. Wilkins kicked open a maintenance door that led into a grimy hallway of pipes and flickering lights. A sign above read, Biohazard, Authorized personnel only. They stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind them. They didn't know it, but they were being followed. Gregory Martin walked silently through the stairwell above, a silenced pistol in one hand, a listening device in the other. He pressed the button. Terrence's voice echoed faintly from the recorder. Gregory doesn't just bury cases. He erases people. Gregory smiled and muttered, "Not all of them, just the loud ones." He slipped into the tunnel, and the hunt began. The emergency tunnel reeked of bleach and rust. Pipes hissed overhead. Water dripped from cracked ceilings. The flickering fluorescent lights cast long, ghostly shadows as Terrence, Naomi, Wilkins, and the federal agent pushed forward through the narrow corridor. Each footstep echoed like a drumbeat. Each breath felt loud. Terrence leaned heavier on Naomi, his wound bleeding again. "We have to move faster," Wilkins said, glancing behind them. "If Gregory's following us, he won't wait to finish the job." The agent pressed a button on his earpiece. "Static. Comms are dead. He's jamming the signal." Naomi gritted her teeth. "Of course he is." They turned a sharp corner into a wider tunnel, lined with thick ducts and a trail of red warning lights that pulsed every 5 seconds. "Up ahead," Wilkins said, "there's a freight elevator that connects to the old City Records building. We get there, we're off the grid. From there, we'll vanish." Terrence's voice was hoarse. "No, no more vanishing. We're going to face him." Naomi looked at him. "You can barely stand." "I'm standing now," he growled. A sound echoed behind them. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Metal scraping. Not in a rush. Confident. "Gregory." The agent turned and raised his weapon. "Go. I'll hold him back." Terrence shook his head. "He'll kill you." The agent smirked. "Only if he catches me." Wilkins grabbed Terrence's arm. "We're running out of time. You need to see the witness." They sprinted, Terrence limping but driven. Naomi beside him, holding him up with sheer willpower. Behind them, a sudden burst of gunfire. The tunnel lit up with muzzle flashes. The agent returned fire, ducked, rolled. One bullet grazed his arm. He didn't flinch. Then silence. Gregory's voice echoed through the tunnel. "I taught you better than that." The agent froze. "You trained under Gregory?" Wilkins whispered from up ahead. Terrence's face dropped. "He's one of them." "No," the agent shouted back. "I was." "Not anymore." Gregory laughed, a hollow, icy sound that filled the tunnel. "You were never out. You were just slow." Then the lights went out. Pitch black. Only the sounds remained. Breathing, footsteps, the hum of electricity fading. Naomi felt blindly for the wall. "Wilkins, where's the elevator?" 10 feet. "Follow my voice." They moved. Slowly, carefully. A sudden crack behind them. A body hitting the ground. The agent didn't respond. Naomi reached a rusted metal door and pulled it open. The freight elevator yawned before them. They piled in. Wilkins slammed the button. But nothing happened. Come on, she whispered. Gregory's voice echoed one more time from the dark. "Not this time, Terrence." Then a new sound, a beep. A digital beep. Wilkins gasped. He planted a device. Naomi's eyes widened. "You mean a..." Boom. The explosion ripped through the tunnel, sending fire roaring toward the elevator. They ducked as the flames licked the entrance, but the doors slammed shut just in time. The elevator lurched downward. Smoke seeped through the cracks. Terrence coughed, barely holding on. Wilkins reached into her bag again and pulled out a small black recorder. This is what he's afraid of." Naomi took it. "What's on it?" "A confession," Wilkins said. "From the one person who saw everything." Terrence looked up. "The witness." Wilkins nodded. "He's alive, living under a false name in South Shore. I hid him, protected him, but he's ready to speak now." Naomi's hands shook as she held the recorder. "If we get this out, he burns." "No," Wilkins said. "They burn." The elevator stopped. They stepped into a massive underground loading area, half forgotten and buried beneath years of dust and forgotten city blueprints. Old records sat in stacked boxes, untouched. Naomi looked around. "What is this place?" Wilkins smiled. "The city's old truth. Forgotten on purpose." And then, a voice. "I didn't forget." They turned. Standing in the center of the room, blocking the exit, Gregory Martin. He was calm, weapon lowered. His eyes locked on Terrence. "You were never supposed to come back," he said. "But you did. And now you've dragged her in with you," he added, looking at Naomi. "I didn't drag her," Terrence said. She stood beside me. Gregory stepped forward. And for what? Closure? Justice? These people out there don't care, Terrence. They'll cheer for a second, then go back to scrolling. Nothing changes. You're wrong, Naomi snapped. Because this time, we have proof. Gregory smiled. Proof means nothing without power. And I have all of it. Then, he drew a second weapon. Silencer already attached. Wilkins stepped in front of Terrence and Naomi. You won't touch them, she said. Not tonight. Gregory raised the gun. But before he could fire, crack, a bullet rang out. Gregory dropped to one knee, yelling in pain. His pistol clattered across the floor. Behind him, the federal agent, bleeding, limping, but alive. I told you, he muttered. You wouldn't catch me. Gregory fell backward. Terrence limped over and picked up the gun. Don't, Naomi whispered. You're not him. Terrence looked at Gregory, shaking, silent, helpless for the first time. I don't have to be, Terrence said, and dropped the gun to the floor. The agent cuffed Gregory. You're going away this time. And it's permanent. Gregory didn't look at any of them. He only stared at Naomi and whispered, You think this is over? She leaned in close. Her eyes were full of fire. No, it's starting. They turned to leave. Wilkins looked back one last time, her voice steady. We'll see you at the hearings, Gregory. Don't worry, we kept the good seats up front. And as they disappeared into the shadows of the tunnel, Naomi clutched the recorder tight. Because the next chapter wasn't in the shadows anymore. It was going to be loud. The morning sun crept across the Chicago skyline, golden and slow, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Terrence stood at the edge of the rooftop of a safe house, arm in a sling, bandages still fresh. Below him, traffic buzzed. People hurried. Sirens whined in the distance. The world hadn't changed. But it would. Inside the safe house, Naomi was at a desk, laptop open, microphone plugged in, wires snaking across the room. On the screen was a countdown. Live in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Terrence turned back inside. You sure this will work? Naomi nodded, not taking her eyes off the screen. The live stream's going out on every independent channel we can hit. Underground platforms, legal watch groups, even student-run media networks. Gregory can't spin it. Not this time. Wilkins paced nearby, going over notes. And once it's out there, the courts will have to move. A case this public? They won't be able to bury it again. Not without sparking a fire they can't put out. The federal agent, now moving with a crutch and a stitched-up arm, stood by the window, watching the alley. Still no sign of activity. Shadowline's gone dark since Gregory's arrest. But that makes me more nervous than when they were loud. Naomi looked up. They're regrouping. Or replacing, Wilkins added. People like Gregory are just heads on a hydra. Cut one, another grows. Terrence nodded. That's why we don't just take down one man. We take down the machine. The screen flashed. Live in 10 seconds. Naomi took a deep breath and leaned toward the mic. Here we go. Terrence stepped beside her, standing tall. He looked into the webcam. Naomi hit the key. Live. Across the country, people watching conspiracy streams, true crime podcasts, civil rights forums, and hidden livestream links saw a face appear on their screens. A man in a gray hoodie. His name appeared in bold letters across the bottom. Terrence Hill, the man they tried to erase. He began to speak. My name is Terrence Hill. I was once a legal clerk in this city. I believed in the law. I believed in the system. And then I learned the truth. As he talked, Naomi dropped in video clips, courtroom footage, Gregory's voice from the leaked files, security tapes, even Naomi's own raid footage. He spoke for 10 minutes. Calm. Precise. Raw. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He simply told the truth. And the world listened. Over 48,000 viewers tuned in within 5 minutes. By the 10-minute mark, it was trending. Hashtag the case they buried. Hashtag Terrence Hill. Hashtag Shadowline Files. Wilkins stepped into frame, revealing her identity for the first time. She held up the final page from Naomi's sealed court case. This is what a system built on silence looks like, she said. But it ends today. Then Naomi played the audio. The voice of the witness. Tired. Scared. But alive. I saw them plant the drugs. I heard Gregory give the order. I didn't speak then because I knew what would happen. I watched them destroy Naomi Simmons' life. But she wasn't the only one. Names. Cases. Locations. One by one, they were read aloud. Each word another crack in the wall. And then Naomi leaned in, looked right into the camera, and said, I was called a liar. I was labeled a criminal. I was laughed out of my own home. But I'm still here. And I'm not scared anymore. The stream ended. Silence followed. For a moment, they just stared at the screen. Then the phone rang. Wilkins answered. Professor Wilkins? This is the Department of Justice. We've seen the broadcast. You'll be contacted shortly for a full inquiry. Effective immediately, a special investigation task force is being assembled under federal oversight. She hung up. Her face didn't show relief. Just focus. First domino just fell, she said. But just as they exhaled, the safe house lights went out. Terrence froze. Naomi's fingers hovered over her keyboard. The agent drew his weapon. Generator? He asked. Wilkins shook her head. Too fast. This is an override. A soft whirring sound came from the hallway. A red dot appeared on the far wall. Sniper scope, the agent hissed. Everyone down. They dropped as the first shot ripped through the window, shattering glass and slicing the air like a blade. Naomi crawled to the wall and unplugged the hard drive. They're going after the backups. Wilkins grabbed the bag with the remaining files. We've got to move. Now, Terrence pushed himself up with one arm, adrenaline drowning out the pain. No more running, he said. We go straight to the courthouse. Deliver the originals ourselves. You'll be killed, Naomi cried. Then I die on my feet, he said. But I won't live on my knees. Wilkins looked at him, then nodded. They ran for the stairwell. Behind them, more glass shattered. Smoke bombs rolled in through vents. Gregory may have been in chains, but someone else had taken the wheel. Outside, a black car pulled up. Inside sat a woman in a sharp gray suit. Calm, blonde, military posture. She held a tablet in her lap, watching the broadcast replay. She sipped her coffee. Then she turned to the man beside her. Terrence Hill just declared war. The man didn't speak. She smiled. Good. Let's give him one. Rain slicked the courthouse steps, just like it had the day Terrence stood there in chains. But now he wasn't in cuffs. He wasn't alone. Terrence Hill stood tall beneath a borrowed umbrella, blood still seeping through his shirt from the reopened wound. Naomi pressed at his side with the hard drive in her hand. Wilkins stood behind them, eyes scanning the street like a hawk, the federal agent by her side, pistol hidden beneath his coat. And in Terrence's pocket, the final page from Naomi's case. Signed, stamped, suppressed. Until today, the courthouse loomed ahead, intimidating, gray, and cold. But not as cold as the people inside it. I never thought I'd walk back into this place without a badge or cuffs, Naomi said, jaw tight. Terrence gave her a glance. We're not walking in. We're walking through. They stepped forward together. Inside, the halls were buzzing, not with business as usual, but with fear. The video had gone viral. Not just on underground forums this time, but everywhere. Morning shows were running it. Political commentators were dissecting it. Protesters were already outside with signs. Truth is evidence. Terrence Hill, the system won't erase US again. Hashtag Naomi was right. Cameras followed their every move. Naomi handed the hard drive to the front clerk, whose hands visibly shook as she took it. We need to see the chief judge, Wilkins said calmly. I don't know if he's in. The clerk replied, eyes darting between them and the screen still showing the live footage from the hallway. You tell him Naomi Simmons is here, Wilkins added. And we have the original, unsealed testimony from the Simmons case and 37 others. Then ask yourself if he wants to be in the news tomorrow too. The clerk ran. Terrence leaned against the wall, breathing heavy. You okay? Naomi whispered. Yeah, he said. Just thinking. About what? How many people never got this far? Naomi nodded slowly. Then we walk for them, too. Just then, a shadow stepped around the corner. Terrence froze. Naomi reached for his arm. The woman in the gray suit. From the car. She was just as sharp, just as unreadable up close. And beside her, a man in a black coat. Big. Quiet. Military. She smiled. You must be Terrence Hill, she said softly. I've seen your work. Bold. Dangerous. Compelling. And you are. Wilkins stepped forward. Director Evelyn Cross, the woman replied. I work with an agency you're not cleared to know about. But you might call us the cleanup crew for national embarrassment. Wilkins didn't flinch. Shadowline. Cross chuckled. No. We're what comes after Shadowline. The invisible leash for the dogs that run too wild. Naomi stepped between her and Terrence. What do you want? Cross's smile faded. I want this to end. Quietly. No trials. No hearings. Just sealed files, cold coffee, and headlines that vanish in 48 hours. You get your justice. We keep our shadows. Everyone wins. Terrence blinked. So you want us to take a deal? Yes. Full immunity. Quiet settlements. And an NDA tighter than a banker's vault. It's clean. Safer for you. And much easier for us. Naomi stepped forward. You think after all this, we'll hand you the truth like a spare napkin? You won't be able to stop what's coming. Cross said calmly. There are people with power who haven't made their move yet. You think Gregory Martin was the monster? He was a paper cut. I'm offering you protection before the Real blades show up. Wilkins smiled. You should know by now, truth bleeds louder than silence. Cross tilted her head. Then you've made your choice. Terrence's eyes narrowed. No, you did. Years ago, when you turned people like Gregory into weapons. Cross turned to leave, but not before saying, we'll see if your truth still shines when the power goes out again. Then she disappeared into the elevator. Wilkins exhaled. She's bluffing. No, she's not, the agent said. But she's scared. The clerk returned. Judge Holloway will see you now. Conference chamber. They walked. Every step felt like 100. Judge Holloway was a man built like a mountain. Thick glasses. Old eyes. And right now, those eyes stared at the hard drive like it was a loaded gun. He said nothing for a full minute. Then finally, everything in this true? Terrence nodded. It's the original witness testimony. The files Gregory Martin buried. The surveillance tapes. The signed suppression orders. All of it. Holloway looked at Naomi. And your case? She stared him down. I want it reopened. I want the officers who raided me charged. And I want every name on that list investigated. Wilkins placed the last folder on the table. And I'll testify to everything I saw. I helped train Gregory. I know where the trail ends. The judge looked up at her. You realize this will blow the roof off this courthouse. Terrence spoke firmly. Then build a better one. Judge Holloway picked up the phone. Get the Federal Oversight Committee on the line. We're unsealing a full docket. Click. The dominoes were falling faster now. But just as they stepped outside the judge's chambers, their phones buzzed. All at once. A message. One photo. Gregory Martin. In his prison cell. Bleeding from the mouth. Eyes open. Lifeless. The caption said only. Too slow. Naomi dropped the phone. Terrence picked it up, his face stone cold. This wasn't about hiding the truth anymore, he said. This was about erasing the people who carry it. Wilkins stared at the screen. Gregory was their loose thread. And they just cut him. Terrence looked out at the sea of reporters now gathering outside the building. If they think killing him ends this, he said, they've got another thing coming. Because the real trial, the public one, was about to begin. The courtroom was packed. News cameras lined the back wall. Protesters filled the halls outside. Even the court reporters looked different, more alert, more present, no longer sleepwalking through another dry hearing. Something real was happening. This wasn't just Terrence Hill versus the state anymore. This was truth versus silence. Justice versus legacy. Right now versus how it's always been. Judge Holloway entered the chamber to the sound of murmuring voices and shuffling feet. He tapped his gavel once. The room fell still. All rise. Terrence stood with Naomi beside him. Wilkins sat behind them, flanked by a small team of federal agents now working under the newly formed Integrity Task Force. They didn't wear badges. They wore conviction. Across the aisle sat the state's new legal counsel, a young woman in a navy blue suit, clearly nervous. Because how do you defend a machine that just had its wires pulled into daylight? And more importantly, how do you protect it when it's still bleeding from its last victim? Because Gregory Martin was dead. His sudden suicide had left a stain over everything. No note. No explanation. Only a smear of blood in a cell with a camera that just happened to go dark for 12 minutes. They all knew what it meant. And now, they were racing the clock to expose who would be next. Judge Holloway adjusted his glasses. This court is now in session for the preliminary hearing on the matter of reopening case number 4429, Naomi Simmons versus City of Chicago, and its relation to shadow line activities, evidence suppression, and federal misconduct. The murmurs returned, louder this time. Terrence stepped forward, cradling a thick folder. Your Honor, this file contains 22 sealed testimonies, 14 pieces of digital surveillance, and one original audio confession, all tied directly to the suppression of Ms. Simmons' case and coordinated manipulation of public records. He placed the folder gently on the table, like a bomb made of truth. Today, we're not asking for opinions. We're presenting facts. The judge raised a brow. Are you acting as counsel? I'm representing both myself and Ms. Simmons, Your Honor. Per our legal right. The state's attorney stood. We acknowledge the submission, but ask for a delay in formal hearing while we review the... Terrence cut in. No. Delay is what got us here. Delay is what buried her case. Delay is what got Gregory Martin killed. That name hung in the air like smoke. Everyone knew it was coming. No one expected it to sting so badly. The judge held up a hand. Proceed. Naomi rose. And for the first time in 6 years, she spoke her truth in court. Her voice didn't tremble. It carried. She recounted the night of the raid, the faces of the officers, the way they ransacked her home, how they held her down in her kitchen, knees in her back, telling her to shut up while they found what they needed. She told the court how she lost her job, her apartment, her friends, how the court system turned her into a villain, then walked away. Then she reached into her folder and played the video, the one they had uncovered in the tunnel. The planting of evidence. The officers on screen. Clear faces. Unmistakable voices. One saying, Gregory said this one's a clean rap. Just don't look up. The courtroom gasped. The state attorney sat down without another word. Wilkins rose next. Her testimony was colder, more clinical. She showed the organizational charts. She explained how Gregory's firm, under the code name Shadowline, created a pipeline of convictions. How certain neighborhoods were flagged, monitored, and used as data pools to feed an internal algorithm designed to predict arrests, then make them happen. She showed names, dates, contracts, emails. Terrence stood last. I was erased, he said softly. Not with bullets, not with blood, but with silence. I was laughed out of this very room. I lost everything. I became invisible, but I never stopped learning. I never stopped reading. I never stopped remembering. He looked directly at the judge, and neither will they. Outside, protesters chanted louder. Inside, the judge sat in silence for a long time. Then he leaned forward. Let it be entered into record. The court accepts the motion to reopen the Simmons case. Full hearing to be scheduled within 14 days. In addition, the evidence submitted today will be referred immediately to the Department of Justice. The gavel slammed once. People cheered. The courtroom erupted. But Terrence's eyes didn't celebrate. He looked to the door. Because he knew. They weren't done yet. Not until the real power behind Gregory was named. Not until every sealed file was opened. Not until the woman in the gray suit, Evelyn Cross, was dragged into the light. And that came sooner than anyone expected. That night, Wilkins' phone rang. Blocked number. She answered. No voice. Just breathing. Then a familiar, clipped accent. You went too far, Professor. Wilkins froze. Evelyn, you've caused enough damage. You've named names that weren't meant for daylight. This ends now. Wilkins didn't flinch. You took Gregory out. Now what? You're coming for me. Evelyn laughed quietly. No, not you. Click. At that moment, Naomi screamed from the next room. Terrence rushed in. The window was open. The curtains flapped in the wind. And on the bed, a single manila envelope. Inside, a photo of Naomi's mother. At her job. Alone. Timestamped just 20 minutes ago. Terrence's jaw locked. They're not coming for us, he said. They're coming for the people we love. And just like that, the fight changed. This wasn't about courtrooms anymore. It was personal. They didn't sleep. They couldn't. Every second was a countdown. Every shadow a threat. Naomi sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling as she held the photo of her mother, still in her nursing scrubs, standing alone at the bus stop. Timestamped just 20 minutes before they'd found it. Terrence was already moving, bandaged, exhausted, but fire in his veins. She lives on the south side, right? He asked. Naomi nodded. Yeah, Jefferson and 61st. She catches the 3:15 bus home. Terrence grabbed his phone. We've got 10 minutes. Wilkins was already on the line with the federal agents. We need extraction, high priority. You move now, or you'll be reading this family's name on a wall. The agent responded without hesitation. We're en route. 2 minutes out. The sound of helicopters roared in the distance. Black SUVs swerved through the rain-slicked city streets like sharks through dark water. But in the middle of it all, Evelyn Cross watched. She stood across from the bus stop where Naomi's mother waited, sipping tea from a paper cup like she was enjoying a slow Sunday afternoon. Behind her, two men in dark coats, one with a camera, the other with a briefcase. "You shouldn't have gone public, Naomi," Evelyn whispered, watching the older woman adjust her umbrella. "You made it messy." A buzz in her earpiece. "Targets en route," one voice said. She smiled. But then, headlights. Two black SUVs screamed around the corner. One slammed to a stop between Evelyn and Naomi's mother. Doors flew open. Terrence and Naomi jumped out. Naomi ran to her mother, pulling her back, shielding her with her body. Wilkins stepped out of the second car, arm raised, phone in hand, already recording. "Evelyn Cross," she said loudly. "This is a federal arrest." Evelyn turned slowly, still calm, still sipping tea. "For what?" she asked sweetly. "Watching a bus stop?" The agent from earlier stepped out with a badge. "Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Witness intimidation. Tampering with federal investigations. And we have recordings now. All admissible. You're done." Evelyn set the cup down gently on the bench. "Well," she sighed, "I always liked a good ending." She reached into her coat slowly. "Don't," the agent yelled, gun raised. But she only pulled out a flash drive, held it up like a trophy. "This is everything. Every case, every name, every cover-up. You take me in, and this leaks." Wilkins stepped forward. "We already have it. Yours is just a copy." For the first time, Evelyn's mask cracked. Her eyes twitched. Her smile faded. "You really think you've changed anything?" she hissed. "The system will chew you up. The headlines will fade. You'll be a TikTok footnote before the month is over." Terrence walked up, blood still soaking through his shirt. "But the people won't forget," he said. "Because this time, the truth's got witnesses." He turned, nodding to the crowd now gathering. Phones raised, live streams active, every angle being recorded. Evelyn looked around, then back at Terrence, and, with a soft, bitter chuckle, she raised her hands. They cuffed her. The men behind her didn't move. They knew. It was over. 6 months later, the courthouse looked different. Cleaner. Brighter. On the steps, Naomi stood at a podium with a new title on her badge, Special Legal Investigator, Civil Rights Division. She looked into the sea of cameras and people. "This isn't just about my case anymore. Or Terrence's. It's about everyone who was told to sit down, shut up, and accept the lie. We're not doing that anymore." Behind her stood Wilkins, smiling like a proud mentor. The agent who'd nearly died in the tunnel stood beside her in a new suit, now part of the federal oversight team. And Terrence? He stood to the side. No fanfare. Just watching. He didn't need a title. He'd already made history. A reporter called out, "Terrence, what now? Are you going back into law?" He smiled. "No, I'm going into truth." They laughed, but Naomi knew he meant it. Later, they sat on the rooftop again, this time with sandwiches and sunshine. No helicopters. No sirens. Just peace. Naomi looked over at him. "You could have taken that deal. The hush money. The NDA. You could have walked away." Terrence shook his head. "Walking away is how they win." She nodded slowly, then smiled. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" She pointed down at the courthouse steps, where a bronze plaque was being installed. It read, "Justice is not what you're given. It's what you take back." In honor of Terrence Hill and Naomi Simmons. He looked at it, and for the first time in years, he smiled without pain.